Saturday.
I think both the wills are bad. You don't hear a damn word I say.
Oh, that's,
14 bucks.
Unless he's tuning me out, one of the
no, it's really not. It's, so when Karen went and had her, no, it's really not. It has to do with the old men get,
Real good. Yeah, she really enjoyed them. She really enjoyed them.
they can't hear
She had enough
the
of
higher pitches.
All right, we're going to start in 1 minute.
The higher
We don't,
pitch
you know,
than
we
voices.
don't, we're old folks, we don't exactly use them.
Silence and turn off your cell phones if you got them.
What?
That's mine.
We
No,
don't need it.
We don't need.
We're not doing a recorder.
Set up.
Yes, it'll
She's
be
gonna
recorded.
record.
The way it's set up now, we don't need it.
You're not just passing it back and forth anymore. I've got it. I can break the sound bites up. We're gonna do one big long recording and I'll break them up for the file.
Nice, hi Taylor. Well, good, because half the time I forget to turn mine on.
She's the culprit.
Half the fun is walking it over and shocking
Give me a little
everybody.
bad. I know. That's why I said, don't turn it off when you give it to me. What's Just that? give it to Oh, me. you were in the zoning meeting.
Yeah, I told him, I was like, I gotta go.
I like to see baby walk. All that
Don't
energy.
turn it off. Just give it to me.
All right, it's 6 p.m. Today's Tuesday, January 18th, 2022. It is a committee of the whole meeting today. Before we get started with the committee of the whole meeting, we're going to jump into committee meetings. So first up is Mrs. Angeloff with street sliding and sidewalks.
Thank you, Mr. President. Do I still have to have this on?
Yeah.
Yes, please. That's the only way that the recorder can pick it up.
Oh, okay. It is, I would like to call to order the Streets, Sidewalks, and Lighting Committee. It is, wrong date. It is Monday, January,
Tuesday.
Tuesday. We're all here. 6 p.m., council chambers. Members that are present are myself as chair and Mr. Shorter Griffin. Ward 1 seat is open. All of council members are here, and other guests as noted on my sheet. We have no request for legislation, but I do have one piece of legislation that's is going for it. It had one reading, so it's going for its second reading next week. But the chair from planning, Mrs. Thompson, had sent over some questions in regards to the streets, complete streets policy, and Mr. Trevor had answered, Mr. Hunt had answered those, and real briefly, I just want to go over the answers because in case there's any other council members that wants a little bit more explanation on this. And so with the answers that, and the email that Mrs. Thompson sent to me, I just want to go through this one more time. The reason for this policy is AMITS recommends creating a complete streets policy as part of the AMITS funding policy guidelines. And we've been using, more or less, the city and the community partners have been promoting complete streets concept for a number of years. The Magic Mile, bike and Brainstone storms. We've had a development for the Barberton City Schools, Safe Route to Schools in 2013. And then Barberton Schools event to encourage walking and rolling to school. That was in 2015, 2016. The bike share. So we've kind of been using that without having a resolution. The second question that she had was, why was it changed from ordinance to a resolution? And it's because the legislation was changed to a resolution, so the policy can be utilized as a guide and not be law.
Right.
And that's what that is. Now, there are other jurisdictions that have it as an ordinance, but that was something that was decided that we would, go ahead and do it as a resolution. Another question was, and they were all good questions. I don't know if they were asked prior to this or not, but I appreciate, having this information and having the questions. Will this change any future projects? And it will not. this will not have an impact on projects that are already in the works. Every project the city has will continue to be planned in response to community contests and safety. So it doesn't affect anything that's already in the works. Another question was that why did Summit County Public Health pick Barberton? And at one of the Planning Commission meetings, that was Akron. Akron has an ordinance. And because we have such a good working relationship with Summit County Public Health. And it will attract, hopefully, it will attract additional grant dollars to the city of Barberton. And so with working with them and them seeing what we can do and build a relationship, this is why, you know, they have this for Barberton. Now, there are other, at the time of the Planning Commission, there were other cities that was presented with that. I don't know, you know, which ones had an ordinance or a resolution, which ones that they have decided. There are at least 28 jurisdictions in the state of Ohio that pass the complete streets language. And Akron is one, is an ordinance, Bowling Green, a resolution, Cleveland, an ordinance, Columbus, an ordinance, Delaware, a resolution, Franklin County, a resolution, Hillard, a resolution. I don't want to go through all of these, but there's 28. Newark, that was a resolution, Oberlin, a resolution, Oxford, a resolution, Riverside, resolution, Sylvania, that was a resolution, Toledo, an ordinance, Upper Arlington, it says complete streets policy, so I don't know if it was an ordinance or what, but that, and Westerville, and that was a resolution. There was some language that Mrs. Thompson and we had talked about, transportation without discrimination. You know, can you simplify it, make it a little bit easier so it doesn't particularly go into the gender identity was eliminated from that. But that is something that, you know, will be discussed at the PC meeting tomorrow. So just to kind of give an overture, I think this was presented to council back in October. And just an overture of, if you have any questions, any more questions, please email me with them or Mr. Hunt, and we'll try to get your answers. Like I said, this was presented to us in October, and the third reading will be February 14th. And sometimes that happens. I just don't want Summit County Public Health thinking, gosh, they're dragging their feet or something of that sort. So very good questions, and I hope that I didn't answer these. I read them. Mrs. Thompson got the answers. And so we will have a meeting tomorrow. The PC will meet tomorrow. They do, because of the changes, they have to go back and vote on those changes and some discussion. Next week is legislation, so it won't be the week after that, you know, this can be discussed openly a little bit more. But please, if anybody has any questions, you know, Mr. Hunt's available. You can email them to me and I'll get the answer for you. And like I said, the third reading, because of these questions and some changes, we won't be able to get this passed until the third reading. And so I appreciate it. And I was going to have Mr. Shreve talk about streets because I'm brand new with being chair of streets, but our president told me that he had talked to him, and he said there was 7 trucks out, 3 trucks were broke down. So, okay, good. I knew. Beth?
I have a summary.
Okay, good, good. I would love that, yes.
Okay, so Sunday evening, they had a 7-man crew in from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. They came in, hooked up plows, went out and got a thick layer of salt into the streets. At this time, I'm reading from a summary report, not written by me. At this time, there was not enough snow on the streets to start plowing, so the crew left at 10 p.m. to be fresh for later that night, early morning. If they had them work all night, we would not have enough fresh bodies for the morning commute. So from 10 p.m. to 4:30 a.m., they had a 3-man crew in, keeping the mains and hills passable. They were also available to respond to EMS and fire calls in order to get emergency personnel to their destinations. At 4:30 a.m., which was the bulk of the snow, we had a 10-man crew come in, and the overnight 3-man crew stayed until 6 a.m. So at 4:30 a.m., that came in to begin single passing secondary collectors in residential neighborhoods. And this crew left at 5 p.m. and worked a 12.5-hour shift. Monday evening from 5 p.m., we had a fresh 3-man crew work until 11:30. And they continued cleanup efforts as well as plowing alleys and parking lots. And Tuesday morning, this morning, they had a 7-man come in at 4:30 a.m. for an early start to their normal shift. There was quite a few overtime hours that were used, and it looks like it averages to 14.5 hours per man. And the average also includes the mechanics who were in for repairs and employees who are new or newer to snow and ice. So they did have a couple of new guys that were not as familiar as they could have been, or they just weren't. They had maybe just hired. So that was they put a seasoned, not seasonal, but a seasoned snowplow driver with those new employees to assist and to show them how it works. Said that the snowstorm presented many challenges for the service department, as well as all other municipalities in Northeast Ohio. The parking ban helped their efforts, but only reduced the number of vehicles by about half. And cars stuck sideways in the middle of the street. That also impaired their ability to be as efficient as they wanted to be. Trash cans that people have set out in the street 10 inches out from the curb, that also hampered some of their abilities. And they had 3 of our 5-ton plow trucks break down on us during the course of the 36 hours. At this time, we're down to 7 full-size trucks. So wow. The breakdown, I don't know what the breakdown was. I don't know if it was a plow blade issue or if it was a mechanical engine issue. I don't know. But that's the summary. So I think police and fire handled 164, I believe, calls for service, which I'm sure included the sideways cars and maybe some accidents, a couple of accidents. I didn't hear of any major accidents. And I don't know about EMS, anything big that came out of EMS.
No, like I responded, we had a couple ambulances get stuck, but that's not uncommon during a snowfall. You know, it would be nice if we could always predict and coordinate with the street department or the plows where the call is going to be, and they can get out ahead of us. And sometimes we are able to, and sometimes we're not. We ended up getting stuck a couple of times, but it didn't result in anything other than the guys having to get out and do some pushing. So that was the only issue that I heard about.
Beth, can you repeat the overtime hours?
36 hours. It was over 36 hours, and the average was 14 and a half per person.
14 and a half, okay. All right.
Some was obviously it's an average, so some
right.
more, some was less.
Right. That was a lot of snow. I know Mr. Greer was out at 3:30 in the morning. My husband was out at 5:30, and he actually measured our driveway, and it was 13 inches of snow. So that was a lot of snow, and we knew it was coming. We just, at this point, we just didn't believe it was going to happen. You know, you never believed the weatherman, and it did finally happen. So thank you, Beth, for giving that report.
You know, I just would like to give a shout out. Those guys worked very
Oh my gosh, yes they did.
Worked pretty hard in that 36-hour period to keep the streets clean as they could. Again, like what Dan Martin said in his summary, it's difficult to believe that every municipality, including the larger ones, I mean, if you look at Cleveland, their downtown was, you know, kind of a mess. And I'm not pointing fingers at people that are more or less efficient. I'm just saying everybody, when the snow falls that quickly, is going to have difficulty getting the streets clean and keeping them clean. And I have to believe that even our own street department tomorrow and the next day, we'll still be working on those piles that have been created, so.
Yes, it'll be a while before they melt too, that's the thing.
There
Mr.
was,
Griffin, do you have anything?
There was one accident in the 6th Ward. Guy backed into, he hit a trailer, he hit a snowplow.
Oh,
Yeah, but I don't,
I don't know about it.
yeah, well, I don't think it was much damage to the snowplow. Probably it was his fault. He admitted it. He said, it was my fault. I hit the snowplow. So
What ward did you say? Did you say
Yours.
6, yeah.
crazy drivers over there.
Hey now.
It's just, we don't have enough employees, first of all. We don't have enough trucks, and the trucks that we have are very old, and this just shows it right here,
Right.
In dire need, we have 3 trucks that are down for some type of reason. And it just shows, I think there's 11 people or 11 in the street department, At one time, we had 30-some.
Right.
And so
As
that
many
makes a
as
big
40.
difference. I think they've done a great job. They try to get every residential street yesterday at least one time, and they go right down the middle. But it is what it is. We can't stop Mother Nature. We just hope this time she was teasing us, which she wasn't. She was up front. So do I have any, yes, Mrs. Fry.
I have a question, and I'll direct it to Beth, although she doesn't take care of this. But I think they actually should have said that there wasn't going to be any trash, because that did cause a mess. And I don't even know how they got any of those containers actually emptied, because people didn't.
It's been delayed.
Yeah, been delayed.
Yeah.
Delayed a day.
A day, yeah.
Yeah, but even though it was, you should see the mess out there. And some of them were even stuck to the ground, because people are, they didn't shovel the snow away from them so the trucks could get them. So maybe that's something to think about.
Well, and
in
if
the
you're-
future when we have something like this.
If your cans aren't full,
Right.
you can wait till next
Oh,
week,
yeah.
because
That's what I did.
It's not gonna stink, because they're gonna freeze, the trash is gonna
That's what I
freeze.
did next
So, it'd be best if you don't have to put them out, don't put them out until next week. But if you have, lots of children and lots of trash, then I guess so. But, if you possibly can wait another week, I think that'd be best. Mrs. Thompson?
We didn't know that the trash was delayed
Right.
personally until later Monday after the fact.
Right.
Our trash day in Ward 6 is Monday, and Norton had announced it Sunday
Yeah,
that it was going to
Norton
be
did.
delayed, but I believe they go through Republic, if I'm not mistaken.
Well,
But,
I don't know.
I hadn't heard anything, and I believe our email servers were down because I've been trying to watch for it, but I ended up going to, I think it was around like 4 o'clock or something yesterday. I looked out and I'm like, trash is still there, I bet it's delayed. And I ended up finding, I went to Kimball's website, and that's where I saw the information, so.
it was on Nextel.
Right.
Nextel is
You
what.
should be on
Nextel, is that what it is?
I was, but I didn't get one from Barberton. I got one from Norton, but.
I got one from Norton prior to getting it from Barberton, but then I got
Yeah.
it from Barberton as
I
well.
don't know the answer for sure, but I believe Kimball contacted the city. and-
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I got Norton's, and then I got Barberton's, that it was.
Okay, the only thing through Nixle I got for Barberton was the parking ban.
Yeah, the
I didn't
parking
see
ban,
anything from
yes,
Kimball,
yes,
so,
yes.
I think that's part of the confusion, so.
Okay. If there, yes, Mr. Jaber?
Thank you, Ms. Angela. This question could be for you or Mrs. Doherty. Now, for the parking ban, who enforces that?
The safety director.
Safety director?
And it's over so many inches, 4 inches, 4 inches or more.
Was there any violations given out?
I don't know that the police department ticketed, and so the teeth behind the ban is that they do get ticketed, but I think the police were busy with other calls. They had a lot of calls between the police and fire, so I don't know that they had time to do enforcement.
Oh, yeah.
There may have been tickets issued, but I don't know. I don't know.
Thank you.
Yes, Mrs. Coburn.
The biggest thing is that if you left your car out, you can't get it out today.
Exactly.
It is definitely plowed in.
And that's,
They
hence
ask
the
you to
snow,
move them,
the snow
and
ban.
if you don't, they've got no option but to plow it in.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, I don't
No?
have a question. I was.
Do I have a
waiting.
motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr. Griffin, and I will second it, and we are adjourned at 6:18 PM. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Angeloff. Next up is Environmental Health and Social Services with Mr. Jaber.
Thank you, Mr. President. Environmental Health and Social Services meeting January 18th, 2022. Time is 6:18. Council chambers. Members are present except for Ward 1. We have no new request for legislation, no pending legislation, but we do have an appointment. A letter from Mayor Judge requesting confirmation of Mrs. Mary Jo Goss to sit on the Summit County Board of Health representing the city of Barberton. Her appointment would start immediately. See attached resume. Did everybody get her resume? Any questions or concerns? All right, seeing none, motion for that, please.
I will make a motion to appoint Mary Jo Goss to Summit County Board of Health, representing the city of Barberton.
All right, thank you, ma'am. And I will second that since no Ward 1. And we'll take a vote.
Yes.
Yes. And that passes. Okay. And opening this up for miscellaneous discussion.
Your letter, did you want to discuss your letter? Sorry, I should have raised my hand, I apologize.
You gonna read this?
Yeah, you
Okay.
probably should.
I'm requesting city council confirmation. This is for Mr.
Oh, no, the one for
Charlie.
Charlie.
We can do that. We can do that in personnel.
That's on my
Okay,
agenda.
never mind.
Okay, you good?
I just want to make sure we got that.
You're awesome, thank you. All right. Seeing no miscellaneous discussion, motion to adjourn, please.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
And I will second that, and we are adjourned at, it is 6:21. And with that, I pass, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Jaber. Next up, we have Planning, Annexation, and Codes with Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you. I'd like to call the Planning, Annexation, and Codes meeting to order. It is January 18th, 2022, 6:21 PM here in council chambers. All members are here, as well as all council members. I have no new requests for legislation and no pending legislation. I will open this up for miscellaneous discussion. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank the mayor and also Mr. Trevor Hunt. I don't know if you guys know, but LML Trucking has sold. The new owner is going to be Kisner Welding out of Wadsworth. GISSINGER. This first started, I first met one of the employees in March. And he reached out to me because he seen it was for sale. And I gave him a little tour of it. And I reached out to Mr. Trevor Hunt and the mayor, and from that was all them. And I was going to say thank you for making the process very smooth for those two guys and the business owners. And they're very excited to come to Barberton. Again, thank you, Mr. Hunt and the mayor. That'll be it.
Okay, and as Mrs. Angeloff said, tomorrow is Planning Commission meeting. So there's that. Is there any other miscellaneous discussion? Perfect. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, motion made by Nina Angeloff and seconded
I'll second that.
by Mr. Jaber. Right, we are adjourned at 6:22.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. Finally, last but not least, Finance and Personnel with Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Comes to order of Finance and Personnel. It is Tuesday, January 18th, 2022. It is 6:24, and we are in council chambers. All members of the committee are present, which include Councilors Coburn, Thompson, President Greer, and myself as chairperson. Tonight we have one request for legislation. It comes from Councilor Jaber, a request for a resolution in honor of Mr. Charlie Reese. with the attached request here. Counselor Jaber, would you like to go over it, or would you prefer I?
Go ahead. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Counselor. This is verbatim from his. I, Sean Rocky Jaber, verbatim from him, am requesting legislation and public recognition and honor of Mr. Charlie Reese for years of dedication and service to the city of Barberton as an employee, as well as his volunteer contributions to the community. I request emergency reading in regards to the time frame of Mr. Reese's last day of service to the city. Some accomplishments of Mr. Charlie Reese's include starting part-time with the street department on July 14th, 1986, starting full-time with the street department on May 15th, 1990, promoted to inspector property maintenance in the building department on July 26, 2004, promoted to inspector property maintenance / technician on June 8th of 2007, has been a liaison between the city and numerous contractors, 2017-2021 Employee of the Year, and Reserve Officer for the city, retiring from the Barberton Police Department on June 28th, 2018 after 20 years of service. Sincerely, Sean Rocky Jaber, 4th Ward Counselor. It's quite an impressive resume that looks like his blood's gone from red to purple. So, if there's any comments? Counselor Angeloff?
I just want to say that Charlie is a staple in this town. Everybody knows Charlie Reese. I've known his family, I've known him, his brother for many, many, many years. And when he first started with the city, I came on 3 years later, and that's when he went full-time. So I still remember him, cutting the grass, the banks of Lake Anna, him and Mike Vinay, and Mike Vinay almost turned the tractor over because he was cutting the bank. And I had a window that I could watch, and to see these young men work for this city and stay in the city and love the city the way they do, it just gives me chills. Because not only did they get the job right out of high school, but they stayed here. This is their town, and they're still here. And I think that says a lot. It says a lot to these young ones, and I call them young, because, like I said, I watched Charlie play football. It's just, I commend him on being satisfied with staying in this town and showing his purple pride. And he's going to be a hard one to see that he's retired. So maybe we can bring him on another committee or something, So, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thanks,
Counselor
Chair.
Jaber?
I'll follow Mrs. Angeloff. Charlie will give you the shirt off his back. He's one of a kind, and he's really going to be missed in the city of Barberton. But he'll still be around, but I see him in the building department, see him walking through, see him drive around the city and explore. He's going to be very missed, but he's definitely one of the best. So, congratulations on retirement for him.
Thank you, Counselor. And with this information, I would like to add that by starting part-time in the street department, 1986, it looks like he helped make the streets safe, for, nobody take offense to this, for me riding my bike at 6 years old all over the city.
I'm sure he appreciates that.
But that just shows that, this many years later, he's still with Barberton. As Councilor Angeloff said, it's an honor to have somebody that works this hard through this many steps. And I'm sure, he may not tell you, but I'm sure he's probably gotten offers to be stolen away. And I'm sure by this, he turned them down. So, with that, can I get a motion to call for this piece of legislation?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you, Counselor Jaber. Next request we have is from Diana Stevenson, the Clerk of Courts, for payment to ScanWorks. Emergency wording and one reading is requested. Did everybody get the request with a summary. Okay, so this was just a kind of a late invoice, it looks like there. And it was not affect the general budget, coming out of the clerk's technology fund. So, are there any questions with this?
I have none.
Hearing none, do I have a motion to call for it?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor? Aye. Passes. Then we have two pending ordinances. Title Authorized Payments for Wetzel and Andrus, an ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to pay multiple invoices totaling $13,333.32 to Roetzel and Andrus for services rendered, declaring an emergency. Are there any questions or comments on this piece? Okay, moving on. The next is Appropriation American Rescue Plan, an ordinance appropriating an amount not to exceed $411,200 from the unappropriated item of the American Rescue Plan Grant Fund to the capital budget of the American Rescue Plan Grant Fund. This $411,200 is actually divvied up to be $260,000 for a new ambulance. It also includes features to help the COVID virus if a COVID patient has been treated in the back of it. $137,000 for the build-out of Fire Station 1 to help minimize the risk of spreading COVID. And for city equipment, $14,200 for equipment purchase and installation at the Active Adult Center, allowing Barberton City Council and city boards and commissions to meet at the center, allowing for social distancing. Those installations will be permanent and be able to be used by the Parks Department and anything the city needs. In the future, the mayor and I have talked, the American Rescue Plan monies, when it comes to us, we're going to get one piece of legislation, and it may have many items on it, so that we're not bogged down with 18 pieces just for essentially moving one line item.
Makes sense.
Any comments on this? Okay. Moving on, do we have any miscellaneous discussion? Director, anything?
Do you want to go over the finance reports for the month of December?
We don't.
I don't have it.
We don't
We don't
have
have it.
So no.
Next time.
Go.
it. Yeah, that's a good question.
Oh, okay.
Good answer, no?
All right,
Guess if you want to explain it.
Get it? Oh, really funny.
No, that's okay. We can
No,
do
I'm
it next
just
week.
kidding.
my only other question, Director, is how close are we to having the budget in our hands?
I do know the mayor is having second meetings with departments. I think he was scheduling them last week and this week. So after he has those meetings, and he submits his changes to me to update the final budget workbook, we'll see where we stand. Not speaking for the mayor, speaking on behalf of myself, I'm hoping that maybe, hopefully next week, maybe try to get it to you guys. That way we can have the 3 readings and hopefully be past mid-March. That would be my goal to happen. But like I said, it's, right now, the budget workbook's over with the mayor, putting his little finishing touches on what to go through with, what to remove from it, type thing, and then kind of go from there.
Thank you. Is there anything else for miscellaneous discussion? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. We adjourned at 6:32.
Thank you, Mr. Heidick. That concludes our committee meetings for the evening. We're going to take a short break and come back and start the committee of the whole.
Find out she's calling me, my daughter-in-law. I hope it's nothing bad. What's she saying?
Oh, you got a phone call?
Yeah, she's calling.
Who? Your
For
daughter?
daughter-in-law.
Okay.
Not knowing it's Tuesday, council.
We found out at 11. No, you're not. We took it out like
I had to look and look again. What the heck? You come out the worst day. Well, glad to have you aboard though, you know, but come out the worst day. Oh, you had a meeting with Foundation. Well, there you go. There you go. That's sweet.
Yeah, no, yeah.
For committee of the whole, we don't do roll call. And we only did it at the active adult center because of the recording.
Okay. Because all of a sudden he turned to me and said, we're not doing it. And I went, all right.
Yeah, we don't, it's not required.
Okay.
That's, we get paid based on our attendance at the legislative. And so we don't have to take attendance at committee of the whole.
Okay. Oh, gosh. Oh, yeah, because it's usually Monday. Yeah, it's usually Monday, yeah. So,
Okay.
I was really nervous.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, my
For her
gosh,
to
yes.
keep calling, yeah.
Yeah, because she never calls me.
Okay, thank you. I couldn't believe that. I'm like, well, it sounds like you need to get your money back.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, now we have to. I don't think so. I read that verbatim, and I don't think,
You're safe?
they'll have to contact you, but I don't think it's gonna change. I think that's okay. It's just that,
The dentist today,
you know, here we have November, and don't make any copies. Here's January, here's another one.
How long you got it?
This is the current one.
Tighten them up. That hurts every time.
That's why I was gonna tell you, you know, the last time we thought, I know, yeah, we thought it was done.
There's no,
Apparently it wasn't.
there's no
Yeah,
age too
and
old
so
to
now
get.
the planning commission says
When you
because
need
of
'em,
the
you
different
need 'em.
changes.
Hey, Justin.
So we're gonna meet
Are you gonna
tomorrow.
get that?
And, I think then, you know, Trevor can, I'll have him contact you. I don't want any changes on this. But
Get two of them, Justin. They'll be cheap.
the only thing that
That's right.
the only thing that they're really having a problem with, and, is this where
move up,
they
you have to
said
allow-
they eliminate
Got different
gender
things to do now.
identity in this section
number you want?
2-1.
quarter.
Because why was it eliminated?
Keep one for me for next week.
Okay.
I was rushing today and
Because I told him down there, I
I
told
got out
him,
of work, I was like, showering and
Why was
changing.
it-
Greer, Jim saw one, and I said,
What Taylor had
well,
was something
maybe
that
he's
said,
got one.
didn't
And,
say gender, it just
think
said
Todd's
transportation
going.
for all with no discrimination. Maybe that should be put
So after
in
you know,
there.
his new department head.
Instead, you
I gotta get
know,
my
you
finger
might just
in
get
it.
away with just copying, you know, this one here, because the rest is will and shall, and that's okay.
They will get it tomorrow.
Oh, they can keep it then.
That's
The
just a tip,
resolution.
right?
And I think that, I don't think there's gonna be any changes on the resolution. I read that today, and, even if, because it doesn't really say anything.
Yeah, give me the top part when you fill it out.
Right, because I
Right.
read
Well,
this.
I got the money now. You
It's,
You don't need to win.
but, you know, I have to wait until, I'm gonna go to the planning commission meeting tomorrow, because
Yeah, that's what-
All right, we're gonna begin in a
it
minute.
just makes me so upset that we presented it.
1 minute.
And here, they said, what's
Yeah.
Summit County Public?
1 minute.
Gotta send the
I'm gonna have to get a recording from the old high school teacher that used to get in the hallways, he would yell.
I'm not a heavy hitter. Oh, no. 16, 20 books or something. I think 100, 250 and all that, 500.
I have it somewhere.
No,
But,
no.
you know, then people want
I come down today, and I turned on George.
it really,
I don't know how back there.
I mean,
I don't know.
their personal file, you know. Why didn't he go?
Baby,
I will call you
you get a new
when I
Facebook?
remember.
Day or night.
All right, today is Tuesday, January 18th, 2022. It is 6:39 PM, and I'm calling to order the Committee of the Whole meeting. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Citizens addressing council.
Oh,
Ms. Angela?
there's none.
Thank you. All right, we're going to roll into the committee reports, and we're going to start with Mrs. Angeloff with Streets, Sidewalk, and Lighting.
You skipping me?
What's that? Yep. I'm sorry, I had the wrong piece of paper.
I thought.
All right, committee reports, and we're going to start with Mrs. Thompson, Planning, Annexation, and Codes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Planning, Annexation, and Codes met this evening at 6:20 p.m. here in council chambers. All members were present. There was no request for legislation nor any pending legislation. Mr. Jaber did have some miscellaneous discussion about L&L selling. Thanks to the city for the smooth transition, and it had sold to a welding company. So looking forward to having them here in Barberton. And that was it. We adjourned at 6:22.
Thank you, Mrs.
With
Thompson.
that, I pass.
Mrs. Angeloff with Streets, Sidewalk, and Lighting.
Thank you, Mr. President. Street Sidewalks and Lighting met this evening at 6 p.m. in council. All members were present, along with council members and others as noted on my sheet. We had no request for legislation. We have a piece of lending legislation, which is Resolution 4, 2022, Complete Streets Policy. We went through, Mrs. Thompson had some questions that were answered by Mr. Hunt, and that was emailed to me, and we went over those, the questions and the answers that we received. And then under miscellaneous, Beth Doherty, our safety director, talked about the plowing and whatnot, and had 7 trucks out and 3 trucks were down, and there is overtime naturally. And it just, with the snowfall that we had, it just shows how bad and how much needed the street department needs equipment, and we need employees to fill this void, because they can only drive so many hours a day, and those big trucks are very bumpy, and you get tired. Your eyes get very tired. So that's something I think that we all can agree on, that we need to increase our workforce. And with that, we adjourned at 6:18, and with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Angela. Next up is Mrs. Coburn with City Utilities.
Thank you, Mr. President. City Utilities met last week, January 10th, in council chambers. All members were present. We had 2 pieces of legislation that were voted on last week. The one was to vote on the funding for the ordinary and daily operations of the municipal building, the city of Barberton. This was from both the utilities and streets. And that one was called for and voted on. We had a request for legislation from Todd Shreve, Interim Director of Public Services, to authorize the mayor or his designee to execute a memorandum of agreement, MOA, with Summit Soil and Water Conservation District for watershed service to provide conservation, technical, and educational assistance, inspections of stream channels and repartant areas, development and implementation of protocols to manage stream maintenance, create and amend the non-point source implementation strategy, NPS-IS plan, and collection of technical data that corresponds to the city's watershed goals. Emergency wording is requested. We passed that and we'll be voting on that one next week. The second was legislation request from Todd Shreve, Interim Service Director, to authorize the mayor to enter into a professional services contract with Environmental Design Group for engineering and design services for the identified opportunity for an oxbow wetland with in-grade structures. The cost is not to exceed $54,810. We have emergency wording requested with that. That passed and we'll be voting on that. And we had voted on the 2022 bids and contracts year requirements for materials and services. And we had no miscellaneous discussion, and with that I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Coburn. Next up is Mrs. Fry with Public Welfare and Safety.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Public Welfare and Safety Committee met last Monday on January 10th. The meeting commenced at 6:04. All members of the committee were present, as well as all council people and guests as noted on my agenda sheet. We had 3 pieces of legislation that were voted on last week. The first was a request for approval to enter into a 1-year contract with the Legal Defender's Office of Summit County to provide legal representation to indigent persons in the amount of $170 per case. This had emergency wording on it. It did pass, and this is a contract that we have yearly. The second piece of legislation that was voted on was presented by myself and Mr. Heidick. It was to enter into contract with the Law Department Defender's Office. Oh, that's the same one. I'm sorry. We only had 2 pieces. It was in 2 spots on my sheet. The other was presented by myself and Mr. Heidick, and it was to adopt the AFSCME agreement, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Barberton adopting and approving the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Barberton and AFSCME Local 265 and declaring an emergency. The new piece of legislation that we had was a letter from Lisa Kolish-Miller, our law director, requesting legislation for the city to enter into a 1-year contract with Oriana House for the 2022 Community Corrections Contract. Emergency wording was requested. We'll be voting on that next week. Under miscellaneous discussion, we had no discussion, and we adjourned at 6:07. With that, safety, public safety and public welfare and safety will pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fry. Next up,
Tongue-tied.
Next up is Mr. Griffin with Rules, Marketing, and Development.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rules, Marketing, and Development met on January 10th. All members present and other guests as noted. We had no requests for legislation to call for, and we did not have any miscellaneous discussion. We adjourned at 6:08. With that, I pass, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Next up is Mr. Jaber with Environmental Health and Social Services.
Thank you, Mr. President. Environmental Health and Social Services met January 18th, 2022 at 6:18. All members were present besides Ward 1. We had no new request for legislation. We had no pending legislation. But we did have an appointment, a letter from the Mayor Judge requesting confirmation of Mrs. Mary Jo Gose to sit on Summit County Board of Health representing the City of Barberton. Her appointment would start immediately. And we had a motion for that, and that passed, and then we voted, and that passed. And we had no miscellaneous discussion, and we adjourned at 6:21, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Jaber. And could you do city properties, parks, and recreation as well?
Yes, sir, thank you. City Properties and Parks and Recreation met January 10th, 2022 at 6:01 in council chambers. All members were present. We had 2 topics of discussion. First, request legislation requested by Stacy Carr for the mayor to enter into contract to accept a vacant lot at 236 14th Street Northwest, parcel number 01.04422 as a donation to be included in the Barberton Lane bank lots. Emergency warning was requested. We had no remarks, and we had a motion to pass, and we voted on that and also passed. The second one was legislation requested by Stacy Carr for the mayor to enter a contract to accept a vacant lot at 71 West Houston Avenue, parcel 01.12277 as a donation to be included in Barberton Land Bank lots. Emergency warning requested. No remarks. We had a motion for that and it passed, and then we voted and it passed. We had no pending legislation, and we had no miscellaneous discussion, and we adjourned today. Adjourned at that time was 6:04, and we passed, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jaber. Last but not least, Mr. Heidick with Finance and Personnel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance Personnel met tonight, January 18th, 2022 at 6:24. All members are present, all noted on my list. We had 2 requests for legislation. The first one was a letter from Councilor Jaber requesting a resolution in honor of Mr. Charlie Reese. 1 reading and emergency wording was requested for timing reasons. The comments involved in that revolved with Councilor Angeloff making sure he was recognized as a true Barberton and true Barbertonian and hard to replace, and Councilor Jaber noting that he'll still be around town. That moved on from committee. The second request was legislation from Diane Stevenson, the Clerk of Courts, for payment to ScanWorks, emergency wording and 1 reading requested. The explanation was given. The pending drafts and legislation authorize payment to Wetzel Andrus, an ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to pay multiple invoices totaling $13,333.32 to Wetzel and Andrus for services rendered, declaring an emergency. And appropriation American Rescue Plan, an ordinance appropriating an amount not to exceed $411,200 from the unappropriated item of the American Rescue Plan Grant Fund to the capital budget of the American Rescue Plan Grant Fund. And miscellaneous discussion, Director Flaker hopes to have the budget in our hands next week. He wanted to go over the December finance report. I told him no, because we didn't have it. With that, we adjourned at 6:32. That I pass, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Heidick. Mayor's report. Mrs. Doherty, are you covering down for him? No?
For the mayor?
Yeah, anybody have anything from the mayor?
I don't have anything.
Department heads, anything?
No, I don't have anything either from the mayor.
What about your service department?
I think Ms. Dory covered the snow event this weekend. I mean, it really, that's a big thing on the topic right now. So with that, I don't have anything more.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Mr. Hunt? All right, thank you. Mrs. Doherty?
I would just like to say one thing about the snowfall event. I know the mayor's office got upwards of 60 phone calls, voicemails when his coordinator came into work this morning. I'm certain the street department had voicemails, and my office won't receive anything up there. Just we're asking for patience until the streets can be cleaned up without further damaging equipment or impacting our workforce. So just some patience, that's all.
Thank you. Anything from the body? Mrs. Coburn?
They were stating that this has been one of the largest snowfalls in the amount of time, a 24-hour period, since 1948, aside from blizzards.
I just read that in 1978 it was 6 inches of snow, but 70 miles an hour. That came from Channel 3, I think.
So the amount of snow and the time frame that
In the
fell?
time
The
frame.
time frame is the greatest since 1948.
Pretty impressive.
I believe it.
Is there anything else from the body, council? I have a couple things. We have a total of 6 applicants that signed up for the Ward 1 vacancy. They are scheduled for an interview You guys have packets in front of you that was distributed from the clerk. I ask that those packets remain, that has personal information in it, so let's try not to share that stuff, phone numbers and stuff. But the interviews are scheduled, and we'll go from there. Follow-up email was sent out today just to ensure that everybody was still, that applied is still on board with coming in for the interview. So there's that. The second thing I have is I just would like to ask council members to think about this coming in as the new council president. There was some discussion with Mrs. Fry and Mrs. Miller about possibly changing up the way council works and speeding it up. This is all new, relatively new, that we're all in the same room. We used to be separate, so we had to do things a little differently, right? Committee reports made sense because not all members were in the same area. And that's just an example of something that we looked at coming into here, was looking at modifying the committee of the whole to streamline it. If we're all in the same room giving out our own committee reports, there may not be a need for committee reports anymore. We're all here at the same time. There are some caveats to it, being that committee meetings are staggered. However, ideas like that I'm completely open for. And I just ask council members, if you have an idea that might make council better, being that we're a new president in a new environment, I'm all ears, and shoot them over in an email if you have something. Another example of something that we're looking at possibly doing, and this is a charter change too as well. Well, this is a charter change, is consent agendas, meaning Mr. Heidick and the mayor it would be on that's kind of what a consent agenda is, where they put a whole bunch of stuff on one agenda. And if there's an objection to one thing, then the floor opens up for discussion for all things. If there's none, it just speeds up things. Also, the consent agenda could be used for paying bills, stuff that doesn't need to wait for full 3 readings. It's not necessarily doesn't need that legislative process. So those are some ideas to try to streamline council, not only make it faster, but it gives us more time to focus on actual legislation rather than spinning our wheels, going through the motions and suspensions on things that we don't need to suspend. It doesn't make sense. But that is going to be a charter change. So anything you guys can think of, I'm all open. So phone call, email, and we will go from there and then see what needs. Well, everything will be approached with a yes, we can do that, and yes, we can do that. Whether we can or can't, that's left for the planning phase later, but I'm completely open to any suggestions on making council better. That is all for me. One last call. Anything from Ms. Fry?
I just thought of something. It is that time of year for the Ethics Commission that we all have to fill out our paperwork and submit our fee. So you don't want to wait till the last minute, because the fines are, they add up quickly. So everybody should go ahead and fill out their paperwork.
What's the deadline, Mrs. Fry?
May,
Oh.
I think it's March.
What?
I think it is.
I think it's May.
I think it was March when Craig had to download it. I'll
Yeah, I
check
think
it,
it's March.
and I'll send you
I
guys
just
an
went
email.
to the,
Email?
whatever I had.
I think everybody should have received an email, yeah, because I think we got that a month ago or so.
All right.
Nothing changed for me.
Uh,
3 minutes.
I just, I
Miss-
seen
Miss-
it, I just,
If there's, like, I know you guys email each other and bounce things off each other, and then when you refer to it on the record, and I get a question, they want me to produce that document. If you guys send a document to each other that you're gonna bring up on the record, could I please get a copy of it, since it makes it a public record the minute you talk about it?
I will send it over.
I mean,
Yes.
I get some kind of questions, then I gotta make all kinds of phone calls. Can somebody forward me that? And just, I really appreciate it.
Of course, absolutely. Anything else from the body, gallery? Seeing none, I will adjourn the committee meeting. It is 6:58 and we are adjourned.
you are going fine. It already gave money.
See that? You want to see it again, or?
No, I'll check it.
Yeah.